Hello and welcome to Lightspeed, where we discuss music and music production related topics. My name is Sunwarper.
And I'm Curtis.
Today we're taking a deeper dive into sampling. Last episode, we talked about some ways you can incorporate sampling into your music, and we showed the new Sounds by Sunwarper sample pack, which is based on the Prophet that you see here going through a cassette. And today we thought we'd show a couple of tracks that we both have made using the sample pack, and it's with two very different approaches to how we use the samples.
So we shared our ideas over the last episode about what we were doing, and then we've basically taken these samples, and like you say, we've taken them in two completely different ways and two very different styles. I feel.
Yeah, definitely. I don't know why mine turned into a funk jam, but that's what happened.
It's the inner funky time, my friend. So yeah, this is the beginning of I suppose like a community submission. I suppose just to kind of share our ideas. And we're leading the way, obviously, because it's our platform. And we've had a couple of submissions, and they've been really, really cool so far. But as ever, you can still grab the sample pack on Bandcamp for Name Your Price. And it'd be really interesting to see what you guys can kind of come up with, that kind of thing. We've had a lot of fun going through this together just before started recording. So, you can imagine the fun we'd all have if everyone kind of partook, so to speak.
Yeah, as we've learned over the last year of doing this, when we share our ideas, we can all benefit from it and learn from it. So, what Curtis was saying just a couple of minutes ago, just between the song he did and the song I did, when we were showing each other the tracks before we started recording, we were both like, wait, you did what with the sample? How'd you do that? And then now both of us know how each of us did it, and we can learn from it and incorporate it if we want to or need to in a future song. So we really want to hear what you guys can come up with these sounds. So, we can all build this community of knowledge.
Yeah, together we grow, as we've always said. Together we grow.
Definitely.
It's always nice. So we're going to hop into it. We're going to start with Sunwarpers, as it's Sound by Sunwarper.
All right, before we cut over to my screen to talk about the sample song, we want to give a special shout out to our Audionautic Engineer on Patreon, McKinleyA.
If you like what we do, and if you vibe with what we're doing here, what we're trying to create, then consider either making a pledge on Patreon or sharing what we do, telling your friends about this. And, everything is word of mouth. Everything is through shares. And whether that be algorithmic or just over time, people find out from other people. So if you like what we do, please consider sharing this on your socials. Here we are. When you started this, what was your approach? What were you trying to get out of it? What was your kind of methodology?
Okay, so I have a confession. This wasn't actually the song I was going to showcase because we originally wanted this to just be about the synth samples. I'm sorry I disappointed you, but I think the song will be worth it. So I had a song all set. It was a version of a song I did completely on my Prophet in like 2017 called Aeronaut. And even though it was a completely different pad, I think the oscillators were different waveforms. I tried to recreate it with the sample pack. And I actually have a post on Instagram. You can hear a comparison, like a direct A/B comparison of the original version with the Prophet and the new version with the samples. But then I was working on a song where I took a cue from you and had some sample of a song, and I chopped it up in the last episode I mentioned to you the way you did it. I was like, wouldn't that be cool if you chopped it into segments based on transients and threw it in a sampler? So I did just that, and I came up with this little sample of like all these little sounds. And then on my keyboard, I just started jamming around, and I came up with this little groove, and I was like, okay, that's pretty cool. So then I added some bass, like some really fat distorted bass, had some drums on it, and I was like, well, it needs some synths. So I started using my samples, and I put that into a sampler and made a pad out of it. And then I also, little cheat, sorry, but it's our show, we can do what we want. I have what will be a future sample pack as a bit of a thickening part to the original sample. So there's two, and you'll hear as it like thickens it. It's just a little nuance to it, but I love to do doubles and stuff, and I figured, hey, I might as well throw in two different samples of the Prophet.
Let's hear it, and then let's tell us through like how it came to be.
All right, so I'm gonna start because we wanted this to be a minute, and Curtis is being strict on that. So I'm going to start in the song.
Yeah.
So I apologize, but I will be releasing this song as part of a subscription release in a couple of months. So if you do want to check it out, it'll be on YouTube, and then if you want it, you can get it on the subscription. So here we go. We're going to start a little midway through. So sorry you don't get to hear the build up, but this is it. So it starts without my synths. It's the sample that I chopped up and then some bass and drums.
That's cool. Funky as fuck, my friend. Funky as fuck. That's nice. Now, I mean, so you took that sample and you put it through. I mean, what did you learn when you were doing it?
Well, it kind of reminded me of collabing with someone, and I guess it is in some sense, because it gets you. Well, it got me out of my comfort zone. Like, I don't typically work with samples or anything like that. I'm getting into using samplers and adding my own samples and stuff, but like taking a song and chopping it up and moving it around and stuff, you get these sounds that would be hard to achieve yourself unless you, of course, sampled yourself. But it's with sounds that you wouldn't normally use and things like that, and you get these like like the way I sampled this song was like really, really lo-fi, and so it's like grainy and distorted and like not right. And then like this one here, the little guitar sound, so the only way I got it to sound just the guitar was using this, I think it's a Spectral Gate, or yeah, Spectral Gate. So without it, you can hear it's like the other sample, but with it,
so you've only got the high end.
Yeah, and there's a lot of artifacting to it, but that's kind of the part of it. And then you don't notice much of it when I have the bass really loud, and then of course my synth sample is pretty prominent, so it kind of masks those missing frequencies of it. And that's something I kind of learned, is that I mean, I always take out frequencies that aren't needed in every instrument and stuff, but it's like you can even sometimes be more vigilant and take out tons of it, because in the context of the song you don't really need it.
Okay, that makes sense. So I mean, moving forward from that point, I mean, do you feel like you might incorporate more samples into what you're doing?
I don't know. I mean, I'm kind of thinking of doing like I mentioned, that subscription, sort of just have it as a side project. That's, if you want to listen to it and stuff, you can subscribe and you get a bunch of other stuff along with it.
I mean, that's cool. I mean, so I think it's interesting. You're right. When we have this kind of, sampling is a lot of fun, and there samples are used all over, both in mainstream and on the fringes of it, or should we say?
Yeah.
And you do run into legal issues, but I think the point is, it, like you say, it does get you out of your comfort zone, and it does get you out of almost out of a rut. Like with anything, we've talked about writer's block and kind of imposter syndrome and stuff like that. And but at the end of the day, like, playing with a sound that is set, and it kind of gives you the jumping off point. It gives you that impetus to kind of try something.
We want to show how we use the samples from Sounds by Sunwarper. So really quick, in the last episode, I talked about, I made, I think, 17, starting from C2 all the way to maybe C6 or 7 or something, and I did every couple of notes like C, E, G, B, I think, or something for every octave. So it is better to put all of those through your sampler, but I get lazy. And so it looks like I stopped around G2, but it works. And it gave me all the sounds that I needed. You know, you just have to do, if you do it that way, you really want to fix up the transients, the loop. That was my biggest thing. I was having issues with setting the loop for the sample. So you really, if you're using one sample for a lot of things, you really want to work on your loop and like where it starts. I actually found having it just move forward was better than having it move forward and back. There's pitch drift on this Prophet, so when it goes backward, it sounded a little off compared to when it went forward. I could have kept tinkering with it, but this is just where I landed on it, and I really liked how it sounded. And then I also have a bit of modulation on the cutoff of the filter in the sampler, so that one moves, and I think there's even a slight modulation on the pitch tuning. Maybe it's the fine one. I can't remember. But yeah, so it just kind of, I'll just play it alone for a second. It just kind of moves very slowly. It's an LFO. You can see the little orange right here and the white ball. That's how it's moving.
Yeah, I mean, so that's a mighty fine way to kind of start using the sample, you know, pairing up and layering different samples, which is, you know, a great way to get these things done.
Yeah, and like that, just you can even use the same sample twice. You know, I have this other sample that I'm working on. It's the same patch that I used for a song called Nightfall, which was like one of my first Sunwarper. And I was like, well, let me just throw it in and see what it does. And it's a little loud right now in the mix, and I don't know if I added effects yet, but it just adds a little more. So, you know, you could even add, like, if you use the sample pack for one synth, maybe use another synth, and if you can see, I have it panned right and left a little bit, so it really thickens up. And then when that second synth comes in, it really makes it sound a lot more full, and you know, like, oh, this is the chorus now, or this is the big movement.
Cool. Oh, that makes a lot of sense. That makes a lot of sense. That's
Yeah.
cool. You took an influence from me in the last from the last episode, in like finding a sample, chopping up and sticking it in and using it as an impetus to start writing a new track.
Yeah.
For mine, I did exactly the same. I did exactly what you did, or your method from last episode, as in I took a single sample, put it into a sampler, and basically mashed it up until it created something new. So I will share my screen with you now so you can see this.
I'm really interested to talk about this track because before we started filming, you had said that literally every sound is from the sample pack, right?
Yeah.
Even the drums?
Everything is from a single sample, and that is just the B2 sample.
Oh, so you were even lazier than I was.
Well, yeah, but that was the point. The point was, what can I do with just a single sample?
So it's like a total exercise in minimalism.
Completely, yeah. It's a total exercise in what can I do with one thing. What sounds, what sonics can I create from just a single waveform or a single sample?
Yeah.
So I heavily utilized the simpler and the sampler in Ableton.
Okay.
And everything you see, some of it I've bounced down to audio so you can see. Some of it is still in MIDI. I will probably elongate this, and I will probably release it track at some point.
Nice.
I haven't bounced down everything. Yeah. So if we bring this up, for example, hang on, probably not. Probably let's do this one, for example. So as you can see, this is the main synth pad, as you can see here, and as you can see, this is the B2 sample in this. This is the simpler, and then I've just chopped a little bit out. I've EQ'd it a little bit. On this one, there happens to be a bit of Valhalla Supermassive.
Nice.
A little bit. Yeah, always.
We have talked about that plugin to death.
I know.
I'm surprised I didn't actually use it on the track I did yet. But the keyword is yet.
Exactly. I was chatting to Carl yesterday, Carl Willebrand, and we both, I think we vamped for about 20 minutes just about how much we love the Valhalla Supermassive. My motivation for this entire thing, like I say, it was to just take the one sample and cut it up as many times as I could to kind of create a song, right? And I mean, for everything from the kick to, I've got two sets of hats and I got 2 sets of snares.
Okay.
And then I've called it shrug because I don't really know what it is. So yeah, this is what we're looking at right now. And this for me, I'll tell you what. Shall I play it? And then
Yeah.
I'll talk about it?
Stop teasing us and just play
Okay.
it.
So I'll go from here. It's only 1:10. It's only 1:10,
Okay.
so I'll play the whole thing. So yeah, and there's a little bit of automation, so we'll just go ahead.
Okay. I still can't believe those clicks are the profit.
Yeah, they really are. Let's see it going many.
Nice. That's cool, man. Before we go into some of the motivations of the track, which you kind of shared a little bit about already, but I gotta ask because it's been driving me nuts since you showed me this track like an hour ago. The snares and the clicks. What'd you do to make them?
Well, that's quite cool. I nicked it from Andrew Huang.
Okay.
It's not my original idea at all, but basically, what you do is you take just a tiny, tiny, tiny quiver of this,
Like a
right?
granular synthesis.
Like a yeah,
or
like a granular
sampling.
little idea. So like for these hi-hats, for example, as you can see, like I've zoomed right in. It's
Yeah.
literally, it's just that. That's all it is.
That's cool.
Then I compressed it to compressed it to fuck in this case. And then that's how I kind of get those clicks. The
Okay.
kick, I was actually disappointed with the way the kick came out, but I didn't have time to kind of go through it.
You
The-
need some
the
more
kick-
high end, probably. It looks
Yeah,
like you
well, this-
cut. Yeah, that you probably get something. I bet if you would add a couple like samples of other sounds in, you could really thicken some of that stuff right up.
Well, this is it.
But
So
I get
as you
the
can see-
exercise of the track. I'm
the-
just saying.
Yeah, no, and totally. So as you can see, I've kind of gone down. So everything kind of was built as I went. So
Yeah.
as you can see from the kick, there's one kick, but by the time I get to the hats and by the time I get to the snares, I've doubled them up.
Yeah.
So I can't. Yeah. Anyway. But yeah. So what I've done is basically in the sampler, all I've done is taken a small waveform,
Mhm.
and then for example, if you take the kick, for example, let's warm up lows. If I take the snare here, for example, as you can see, I've changed the ADSR just to kind of
Yeah.
change how much the envelope kind of goes in and out, that kind of thing.
Yep.
And obviously with EQs and stuff as well, you can really change. Also, a hell of a lot of pitch shift on the hats, for example. If we go onto the controls here, look, I've transposed it by 33 semitones and then by 19 cents.
Oh yeah. Would you ever try adding like a transient shaper? Have you ever tried that?
I have not. I have not. No. And
I'd
that's
be
probably
curious
something I would do.
like you have it sounding really good just with what you've done, but I'd be curious to see if you threw a transient shaper in, if you could kind of control the transient more to even go beyond. I mean, I think what you've got is awesome. So I don't even know if you need it, but just for the sake of, learning purposes, I'd be curious
completely.
what you could get or achieve from using a shaper.
Well, this is it. So the majority of this is the simpler. So in Ableton, you've got the simpler and you've got the sampler. Now, the simpler, as far as I can tell, doesn't have a transient shaper, but then the sampler does.
Okay.
But I'm a dumb monkey.
We're lazy. We're both lazy. It's okay. It's all right. I forgive you.
Yeah.
What you came up with is so cool. It doesn't matter. Now, really fast, the pads. So did you throw that in sampler and then, or simpler, and then, it pitch shifted throughout the octaves?
Yes. So again, this B2, this blue one here, this is basically I've taken this and then it's looped, so it kind of swells and goes back. There's a little bit of an LFO on it, as you can see, just a very slight LFO, just to give a little bit of time, just to give a little bit of kind of movement.
So what's the LFO affecting?
The LFO is affecting the resonance. It's
Okay,
affecting the
cool. Yeah.
resonance. Right. So it just goes through that. It just a little bit of body, just a
Yeah.
little bit of body. That's all. And yeah, and it's basic. Oh, I've also toned it down on the filter just to remove.
Nice.
The idea was that the Prophet has a very distinctive sound, and I was like, great, let's try and make it as non-profity as possible. And so
Yeah.
I took the filter out, took the high end because it's a sawtooth, so I just took the high end out to make it less spiky,
Hmm.
and just made it a bit more mellow, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And yeah, and we come up with that.
Can we hear the synth soloed?
Yes, we can. So we have. Let's boot from here to when it's actually on.
Yeah. Yeah. So now wait, did you use the end of the sample or the beginning of the sample?
The end of the song.
Interesting. Yeah. So like you're almost just using the release tail.
Yeah, that's all I'm using.
Yeah, that's cool.
That's all I'm using. Yeah.
And that swell is just because it's going forwards and backwards, right? And a little of the LFO.
Yeah, exactly. So basically this is all originally, as you can see, it's MIDI.
Right.
And so if you play it on the keyboard, it will transpose to the different sounds that you make. So you have to do a little bit of transposing to make it all in the same key.
Yeah.
I have no idea what key this is in anymore. I suppose it doesn't really matter. It's all frequencies.
Yeah.
But the idea is that it transposes the keyboard, and you can play it like a standard. You can just play it like a standard keyboard.
Yeah, and that's what, like in the last episode we talked about with throwing it in a sampler. You can put it either with all the samples that we provide. You can throw each one into each note and then extend it to fit the empty spaces, or like I did from G2 onwards, you just use one sample and you set it to go forward and possibly backwards if you need it, and it just uses that one sound but transposes it for each note.
Yeah, and it's the key thing here for me was the fact mainly around the percussion. I was not completely happy with the way the percussion came out, but for the exercise it works nicely. But learning about how to create the sounds. So if you've just got a standard waveform, how do you turn that into a snare sound, and then how do you turn that into a hat sound, or how do you turn it into a kick? Basically manipulating a frequency so it can be anything you want. For me, that was kind of the fun in this project. It was kind of working out like how you can turn anything into anything. How basically like sonic alchemy. Almost.
Yeah, no, I mean, dude, it's crazy. Like you inspired me on the last episode to do one thing. Now, this is probably one of the frontiers I've never really explored much of. I mean, I've done a lot of changing of sounds to create new things, but never taking like a melodic element and trying to create drums out of it or percussive elements out of it. So it's really cool because we're always learning, and that's something that I've never done. So it's like that it really excites me into like, oh, this is something I really want to look into, because I love that aspect, like what you did of just like sonic alchemy as you described it, just completely changing something, be something you'd never imagine it could be.
And this is it. I mean, I've been looking at doing this for a while, and and I haven't really had the impetus to do it. And it wasn't until we said, right, until we sat down and said, well, until you came to the desk on Monday a couple of weeks ago and said, hey, let's do a series on sampling. I was like, cool. All right, let's do this.
Yeah.
And it works nicely. And I feel like you understand, like, in terms of sound design, if you can start piecing together, I mean, this is not perfect by any stretch of the imagination, and there's a lot, like, if you want to make a proper snare sound, you need to add some noise, and I couldn't quite work out how to make that happen. And you need to add a little bit more resonance and stuff. And it's a learning curve, obviously, but this is the beginnings of kind of I feel like you can begin to unlock a new level, a bit like I imagine if you do modular, you can understand how frequencies interact with each other, and how to kind of change it. It's the beginnings of it, at least kind of in terms of sound design. All right, if I want to make a trumpet sound, for example, like what does a trumpet sound? What's the frequency of a trumpet sound? How can I manipulate that? And that's that's what I want to start exploring a lot more. And last week I had a commission to do some kind of like upbeat motivational trumpet kind of commercial stuff for TV.
Yeah.
And I was using all the plugins that they've got, and they've just all come up a bit lame. And I was like, well, if I could just create a trumpet sound, then I don't need these plugins. I don't need anything, you know.
Yeah.
But this has given me the impetus to kind of get on that, I suppose.
Yeah. Yeah, really cool, man. That's awesome.
Oh yeah. So I mean, I personally I really enjoyed this creative soundboarding. You know, we take an idea and then we've come to the table and say, hey, I've done it this way, and then you've done it this way. And as ever with music, there's no right, there's no wrong, but the idea of just communicating the differences in our approach learns, like, you know, and it's a really great way to kind of get it done, I suppose.
Yeah, I
Really
mean,
great
just
way to
look
get it
at
done.
us as an example. Like, because you were working chopping up samples, it inspired me to try that. And then because I was messing with making sample packs, you were like, well, let me see what sort of sounds I can create out of just one sample from it. It's a great way to learn and expose yourself to new ideas. And if you at home like this idea, of the creative soundboarding, let us know in the comments, because this is something we could do and we really want to involve you all in it. It's always a chance to learn, and Curtis and I are always hungry to learn, and we hope we inspire that in you all, and that you can share with us and we can share with you.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, together we grow. Together we get better. You know,
That seems
and
to be our new slogan. Besides, make
I
it
love it.
sound good, dude. Together we grow.
Well, we are now in year 2, so I
Yeah, so
feel
we got to
like
have a new motto,
I got a new
and a
motto.
new
Yeah.
logo, maybe.
Exactly. Oh, teasing something there, my
Yeah,
friend.
maybe. I don't know. I don't know.
We'll see. We'll see. We'll see. But yeah, just to reiterate, next episode we're gonna be going through some of yours, and if we had a couple already, and we'd love to hear from more when you like this. This is a lot of fun. This is a lot of fun, and I think it
Yeah.
drives even more when there's a community aspect to everything that we do.
The way I envisioned using these samples has been completely different than the way most people who have submitted already use them. So it's really cool to see all these different ideas, and it just reinforces the idea that we can all learn from each other. Like, the way Curtis used these samples is nowhere near how I thought. When I made them, like, oh, this can be used. It's just crazy. And then a couple of the other submissions we got use them kind of in a similar way. Instead of like putting them in the sampler, they just threw it in the DAW as audio and kind of transposed it on the
Mhm,
fly in there, which is crazy,
mhm. Yeah.
and made chords just by stacking audio and transposing them, up fifths, sevenths, thirds, etc. It's crazy. So we really want to hear from you all at home to see how you did it.
Yeah, totally. Now we're gonna have the radio next week, and then we'll be back in 2 weeks, and I can't wait.
If you guys want to submit a track, we just need it by September 9th. Anytime
Mhm.
on September 9th, we'll be recording this next episode on September 10th. If you could provide either by text, voice, video, whatever you want to do and feel comfortable with, provide a description, some of the motivations behind the song, how you incorporated the samples. We would prefer if you can keep the song about a minute. If it is longer or a full length song, we'll just play a portion of it. And you're more than welcome to release it afterwards or anything like that. We just want to share the song and hopefully learn something from it.
Entirely, yeah. So yeah, those on our Patreon, you guys have already got access to these samples, and you're ahead of the game. So if you wanted to get ahead of the game, consider making a pledge on Patreon. We'd love it. I
Yeah,
know
we
we
really
would.
appreciate all the support on Patreon. We're in year 2 now, and we want to start growing even more, with the things we do, maybe adding more light speeds, things like that. So if you're interested in that stuff and want more, consider going over there. We got a couple different tiers, and they all have different incentives. And we
Mm,
also have a Patreon exclusive podcast that's a little more free form. We're with our friend Eon Lake, and we have a lot of fun in that. And we'd love to see
we
you over
do
there.
have a lot of fun, and yes, it would be great to see you there. So yeah, for now, Godspeed. Thank you very much indeed for tuning in.
Yeah, we'll see you next time.